Severe thunderstorms across Queensland, flash flooding in parts of the state, a tropical cyclone risk building in the Coral Sea. And one of the most persistent questions I am seeing, why has Brisbane been so dry when the rest of the state is copping extreme weather? Let's break down what's happening, where the risks are, and what you need to know over the coming week. Right now, conditions across Queensland couldn't be more varied. And that contrast tells you everything about the messy weather pattern we were dealing with. Mount Carbine in far north Queensland hit 34 degrees at 10 this morning, 85% humidity. Minimum overnight was 28 degrees. That's the extreme heat with no relief, even at night. The kind of conditions where you can get anything done outside. Townsville copped flash flooding earlier today. Came out of nowhere. 1 minute dry, next minute streets are running like rivers. That's the nature of these intense isolated thunderstorms. Alpha in Central Queensland was bucketing down this arvo. Raining cats and dogs. Same system, different location. Darwin started getting rain at 6 this morning and hasn't stopped. The wet season build-up is well underway across the top end. Meanwhile, southeast Queensland sits there barren and hot. Brisbane S been bone dry despite the humidity making it feel bloody awful. The sticky, oppressive kind of weather where you're re-sweating just standing still, but there's no rain to break the pattern. That's the question everyone is asking. Why is Brisbane so dry when the rest of Queensland is getting hammered? The answer S in the atmospheric setup. And it is worth understanding because it explains both what you are experiencing now and what's coming. Queensland is caught between competing weather patterns. You've got the monsoon trough sitting across the far north, that S feeding moisture and instability into the top end and far north Queensland, tropical moisture streaming in from the Coral Sea. Heat and humidity building day after day. At the same time, you've got a semi-permanent ridge of high pressure sitting off the southeast Queensland coast. That ridge is acting like a barrier. It is blocking weather systems from moving south. It's also creating subsidence. Air sinking down, warming as it descends, suppressing cloud development and rainfall. So you get the humidity because the moisture's still there in the atmosphere. But you don't get the rain because the mechanisms to produce it are being blocked. That's why southeast Queensland has been stuck in this pattern. Hot, humid, uncomfortable but dry. While areas further north and inland are getting storms and heavy rain, this pattern is about to shift. Not completely, not permanently, but enough to change the weather across the eastern half of the state over the next week. Let me show you what the models are indicating. The Bureau of Meteorology S-Access model is showing a broad area of low pressure developing in the Coral Sea over the next several days. This isn't a well-defined tropical cyclone yet. It's a monsoon low. Messy, disorganised, but carrying significant moisture and instability. The GFS and ECMWF models agree on the general pattern. Low pressure in the Coral Sea, slow movement, potential to intensify, here S where it gets interesting, and here S where the uncertainty begins. The models diverge on exactly where this system tracks and how strong it becomes. The Access model keeps it offshore, drifting south along the Queensland coast, potentially affecting coastal areas from Cairns down to the Sunshine Coast with rain and storms. The European model takes it slightly further west, bringing heavier rainfall inland across central Queensland. The GFS is somewhere in between. It develops the low more aggressively, showing potential for tropical cyclone formation by the middle of next week. So we've got agreement on the what. A significant low pressure system in the Coral Sea, but disagreement on the where and the how strong. That is critical because the difference between this system staying offshore and tracking inland is the difference between scattered showers for southeast Queensland and widespread heavy rain. It's the difference between minor impacts and significant flooding. At this stage, I am watching the trends more than the specific details, and the trend is towards a more active pattern across Queensland. Let me break this down by region because the impacts are going to vary significantly depending on where you are. At far north Queensland, you're already in it. The extreme heat and humidity you've been dealing with continues. Mount Carbine, Cairns, the Tablelands, right across to the Gulf country. Daytime maximums in the low to mid 30s, overnight minimums staying in the mid 20s. That S, exhausting. Your body never gets a chance to cool down. Thunderstorms will continue to develop each afternoon. Not everywhere, not every day, but when they hit, they'll be intense. Heavy rain, strong wind gusts, potential for flash flooding in localised areas. The Daintree River crossings are low now, but that could change quickly if one of these storms parks over the catchment. If you're replanning any travel in far North Queensland early next week, keep an eye on river levels. Roads can go from passable to impassable in a matter of hours when these storms hit. North Queensland, Townsville, down through the Burdekin, you're in a similar pattern. The flash flooding in Townsville today is a perfect example. These storms are hit and miss. One suburb gets drenched while the next suburb stays dry. But when they develop, they're capable of producing intense rainfall rates. 50 to 100 millimetres in an hour. That is enough to overwhelm drainage systems and cause local flooding. The risk continues through the weekend and into early next week. Keep an ear to the ground for severe thunderstorm warnings from the Bureau. They will be issued when conditions are favourable for damaging winds, large hail or heavy rain. Central Queensland, you are seeing more consistent rainfall. Alpha got dumped on this arvo. That pattern extends across the Central Highlands, Capricornia and parts of the interior. You're really not dealing with the same extreme heat as the far north, but the humidity is still oppressive. And the rainfall is more widespread. This is actually beneficial for some areas. Central Queensland has been dry, not drought conditions, but certainly below average rainfall over the past few months. This moisture is welcome for pastures and water supplies. The issue is when it comes too fast. 20 to 50 millimetres is useful. 150 millimetres in 6 hours causes problems. Watch the river systems, the Fitzroy, the Dawson, the Mackenzie. If this low pressure system in the Coral Sea tracks west and stalls over Central Queensland, we could see river levels rise significantly. Not talking major flooding at this stage, but minor to moderate flooding is possible if the rainfall becomes persistent. Now, southeast Queensland, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Ipswich, the Lockyer Valley. This is where the forecast gets tricky. You've been dry. You need rain. The catchments are low. Gardens are struggling. Everyone's sick of the heat and humidity without the relief of a decent downpour. The question is, will this system deliver? At this stage, the answer is maybe. And I know that S not satisfying, but it S the honest assessment based on what the models are showing. If the low pressure system in the Coral Sea tracks further south than currently expected, southeast Queensland could see widespread rain from Monday through Wednesday, 20 to 60 millimetres across the region. Some areas could see more if thunderstorms develop. If the system stays offshore or weakens, you'll get scattered showers and storms. Some areas will see rain, others will miss out entirely. It'll be frustrating, but it's the nature of these marginal setups. The other factor is the ridge of high pressure I mentioned earlier. It S weakening, but it's not gone. If it strengthens again early next week, it'll block the moisture from reaching southeast Queensland. You will stay dry while areas further north get drenched. I am watching the model runs closely. The trend over the next 48 hours will tell us a lot. If the models start converging on a track that brings the low closer to the coast, confidence in rain for southeast Queensland increases. If they keep it offshore, you are likely looking at another week of hot, humid, mostly dry conditions. For now, Don T bank on it, but Don T rule it out either. Keep an eye on updates from the Bureau, and if you've got outdoor plans for Monday or Tuesday, have a backup option. The Lockyer Valley, Caminia specifically, you've been experiencing those weird wind shifts. Cool breeze 1 minute, warm and sticky the next, then beautiful and cool again. That's the sign of instability. Air masses with different temperatures and moisture content colliding. It is uncomfortable, but it's also an indication that the atmosphere is primed for thunderstorm development. When that low pressure system gets closer, the Lockyer Valley could see some intense storms. You're in a geographically favourable location for supercell development when the conditions align. Keep an eye on the radar Monday and Tuesday. If storms fire up to your west and track east, they could be significant by the time they reach you. Now, the tropical cyclone risk. This is the part that S getting attention, and rightly so. The Coral Sea low has the potential to develop into a tropical cyclone. The ocean temperatures are warm enough, 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. That S well above the threshold needed for cyclone formation. The wind shear is relatively low, which allows these systems to organise and intensify. The Bureau of Meteorology hasn't issued a tropical cyclone watch yet. That'll come if and when the system shows signs of developing a defined circulation and intensifying. Here is what we know. The low is expected to form over the weekend. It'll sit in the Coral Sea, drifting slowly south or southwest. By the middle of next week, around the 18th, conditions become more favourable for intensification. If it develops into a tropical cyclone, it would most likely be a Category 1 or 2 system, not a major cyclone like Yassi or Larry, but still capable of producing destructive winds, heavy rain and dangerous storms surge along the coast. The uncertainty is the track. Will it move west towards the Queensland coast? Will it drift south parallel to the coast? Will it recurve back out to sea? At this stage, all three scenarios are possible. The models Don T have a clear answer yet, and that is frustrating, I know. But it is the reality of forecasting tropical systems this far out. What you need to do is stay informed. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website daily. Sign up for emergency alerts if you are in coastal Queensland. Have your cyclone plan ready if you live in a cyclone-prone area. If you are in a caravan or temporary structure anywhere from Cairns to the Sunshine Coast, pay attention. If a cyclone watch is issued, you will need to relocate to solid shelter. Don T, wait until the last minute. For those in far north Queensland, cyclones are part of life. You know the drill. But for southeast Queensland, this is less common. Brisbane and the Gold Coast, Don T, see direct cyclone impacts often. If this system does track south, it would be unusual. Not unprecedented, but unusual. Even if it doesn't develop into a cyclone, the associated rain and wind will still be significant. A monsoon low can produce just as much rainfall as a weak cyclone, just without the organised structure. Let me talk about timing because that is important for planning. Today, Thursday the 15th, far north Queensland continues with afternoon storms. Heat and humidity persist. Friday the 16th, similar pattern. Storms across the north and central parts of the state. Southeast Queensland stays mostly dry, though there's a slight chance of an afternoon storm. Don T, count on it. Saturday the 17th, the low in the Coral Sea begins to organise. Coastal showers increase from Cairns south to Mackay. Winds pick up along the coast, particularly in exposed areas. Sunday the 18th, the low drifts closer to the coast. This is when the models start showing more significant rainfall for central and possibly southeast Queensland. It's also when the tropical cyclone risk increases. The Bureau will be monitoring this closely, Monday the 19th through Wednesday the 21st. This is the critical period. If the low intensifies and tracks west, we're re-looking at widespread heavy rain, strong winds and potential coastal impacts. If it stays offshore or weakens, the impacts will be much less. For those moving house in the Daintree on Monday or Tuesday, ID have a backup plan ready. River crossings could become impassable if the rainfall is heavy upstream. Keep an eye on the river levels over the weekend. If they start rising, consider rescheduling. For storm chasers heading to Coffs Harbour on Friday, you are probably making the right call. New South Wales will see some storm activity and it'll likely be more photogenic than what is happening in Brisbane. Just be safe out there. Now let's talk about the humidity because that air's been the standout feature across Queensland this week and it's not going away anytime soon. Humidity levels have been brutal, 70 to 90% across most of the state. That is the kind of humidity where your clothes stick to you, where you're sweating just sitting still, where nothing dries out. It's exhausting. It affects sleep. It makes people crook. Headaches, sinus issues, fatigue. When you're re-dealing with high humidity for days or weeks on end, it wears you down. The tiles in your house are sweating. You are mopping 4 times and they still wet. That's condensation. Warm, moist air hitting cooler surfaces. It's a sign of just how saturated the atmosphere is. Unfortunately, the humidity isn't going anywhere. Even if southeast Queensland gets rain, the humidity will persist. It is the nature of the monsoon pattern we are in. The only thing that will break it is a strong southerly change, and there's no sign of that in the next 7 to 10 days. For those in Central and North Queensland, you are used to this. The wet season means humidity. But for southeast Queensland, where you typically get more relief from sea breezes and southerly changes, this extended period of high humidity is unusual. What can you do about it? Not much, unfortunately. Run the air conditioning if you have it. Use fans to keep air moving. Stay hydrated. Avoid strenuous outdoor activity during the hottest part of the day. Check on elderly neighbours and mates who might not have access to cooling. Make sure pets and livestock have shade and plenty of water. And be patient. This pattern will break eventually. It always does. Let me address the broader question about the wet season for southeast Queensland, because I know a lot of you are frustrated. You haven't had good, heavy falls of rain yet this summer. January is usually one of the wetter months for Brisbane and the surrounding areas, but this year it's been dry. The reason goes back to that ridge of high pressure I mentioned earlier. It has been more persistent than usual. Blocking systems, suppressing rainfall, keeping southeast Queensland in a drier pattern while the rest of the state gets activity. Will the wet season arrive? Possibly. If this low pressure system delivers, it could kickstart a more active pattern for the rest of January and into February. But I'm not going to promise anything. The atmospheric setup is complex, and small changes in the position of pressure systems can make a big difference to rainfall outcomes. What I can say is this. The ingredients for rain are there: moisture, instability, heat. What has been missing is the trigger mechanism to bring it all together over southeast Queensland. If that low tracks the right way, you will get your rain. If it doesn't, you will keep waiting. It's frustrating, I know, especially when you're dealing with the humidity without the payoff of decent rainfall. But that's the nature of Queensland weather. Messy, unpredictable, capable of going from drought to flood in a matter of days. Now, a quick word on historical context, because some of you have mentioned comparisons to past wet seasons. This current pattern isn't unprecedented. Queensland has seen dry Januaries before, followed by very wet Februaries. The 2010-2011 wet season started slow, then Brisbane and the Lockyer Valley saw devastating floods by mid-January. I am not suggesting that what coming, but it is a reminder that Queensland weather can change rapidly. The monsoon trough position varies from year to year. Some years it sits further north, keeping the heaviest rain in far North Queensland and the Northern Territory. Other years it dips south, bringing widespread rain to central and southeast Queensland. This year it's been sitting north. That could change as we move through January and into February. The key is to stay flexible. Don-T assume the dry pattern will continue indefinitely, but also Don-T assume the rain is guaranteed. Monitor the forecast, prepare for both scenarios, and adjust your plans as the situation develops. For those with outdoor work planned, farming operations, construction, events, have contingency plans ready. The next week could bring significant rain to parts of Queensland, or it could bring scattered showers that Don-T amount to much. The uncertainty is high, and that makes planning difficult. Let me talk briefly about fire danger, because even though Queensland is dealing with humidity and storm risk, parts of the state still have elevated fire danger. Western Queensland, the Darling Downs, areas that Haven-T seen recent rain, you've got dry vegetation and hot conditions. If a storm produces lightning without rain, you could see fire starts. Keep an eye on the fire danger ratings. If a total fire ban is declared, respect it. No fires, no welding, no angle grinding, no lawn mowing in the heat of the day. The combination of dry vegetation and lightning from these storms is a concern. Most of the storms will produce rain, but some will be dry storms. Cloud to ground lightning with minimal precipitation. That when fires can start and spread quickly. If you're in a rural area, have your bushfire plan ready. Know your triggers for leaving. Make sure your property is prepared. Clear gutters, remove leaf litter from around the house. Ensure water supplies are accessible. I know Queensland is primarily focused on the storm and cyclone risk right now, but Don-T ignore fire danger completely. It is still there, particularly particularly in the western and southern parts of the state. Right, let's wrap this up with the key takeaways, because I know I've covered a lot of ground and you need to know what matters most. First, severe thunderstorms will continue across Queensland through the weekend and into next week. Far North Queensland, North Queensland, Central Queensland, you are all in the firing line. Heavy rain, damaging winds, large hail, flash flooding, all possible when these storms develop. Second, the tropical cyclone risk is real but uncertain. A low pressure system is forming in the Coral Sea. It has the potential to develop into a cyclone by the middle of next week. The track is unclear. Stay informed through the Bureau of Meteorology. Don't panic, but don't ignore it either. Third, southeast Queensland might finally see rain. The key word is might. If the low tracks the right way, you will get widespread rain Monday through Wednesday. If it stays offshore, you will get scattered showers at best. The forecast will become clearer over the weekend. Fourth, the humidity isn't going anywhere. High moisture levels will persist across Queensland for at least the next week. It is uncomfortable, it is exhausting, but it is the reality of the monsoon pattern we are in. Fifth, river levels in Central Queensland could rise if the rainfall becomes persistent. Watch the Fitzroy, Dawson, Mackenzie and other river systems. Minor to moderate flooding is possible if the low stalls over the region. Sixth, if you've got critical plans for Monday or Tuesday in far north Queensland, particularly around river crossings, have a backup ready. Conditions can change fast. And finally, this pattern is messy. Multiple low pressure systems, competing influences, high uncertainty in the models. Don't expect a simple, straightforward forecast. Queensland weather rarely is. Check the Bureau of Meteorology daily for updates. Sign up for emergency alerts. Know your local risks. Prepare your property. Check on mates and neighbours. Stay flexible with your plans. The next 72 hours will tell us a lot about how this system develops and where it tracks. By Sunday evening, we should have much better clarity on the tropical cyclone risk and the rainfall potential for southeast Queensland. Until then, stay safe, stay informed, and don't underestimate these storms. Queensland is heading into an active weather period. It won to be the most extreme we've seen, but it deserves your attention. I'll be monitoring the models and the Bureau S updates closely. If there are significant changes to the forecast, I'll get another update out to you. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of your mates,